Hey guys, Grandpa John coming at you another Path of Exile video. Alright, so we had a blast so far. We've been really killing it. I've been loving this league with both not only the new league mechanic, the return of Sanctum, which is very nice. On top of that, we were very lucky, and you can see here I do have a MageBlood. If you guys did not see the video, go watch it. I pulled 1,008 Ancient Orbs, and I got it within the last like 12 Ancient Orbs. So we have a MageBlood, which is awesome, and it's the 4th Flask one, which is great. I'm too chicken to slam it because I don't want it to brick. It is, you know, very valuable. If we look at the value of this, currently it's 350 divine, or basically 1 mirror. So it's definitely a very rare item. We definitely don't want to lose it, so we're gonna keep it. Now, with that being said, having a MageBlood has brought up some very unique problems, right? So this video, what we're going to talk about is kind of my journey on correcting my builds. I'm going to pull up my POBs. I do have 2 characters this league, so I've got the first one here is my explosive arrow. We hit basically 38.7 million damage on it, and the technically cyclone build that I'm doing right now, that I'm kind of leveling up and gearing up right now, which is at like 12 million damage wise, but it's on a cyclone build, which is a little different. We're going to talk about it and how I kind of adapted the MageBlood with them, kind of the things that I noticed. Now, some of this may seem like non-starter conversations, like, yeah, John, you're an idiot, it makes total sense, why didn't you think of this? And others of it may be one of those where, yeah, maybe you didn't think of this, and maybe this is something that you should be crafting in game currently to cater so much to the users who have like a headhunter or MageBlood, right? So we're gonna kind of cover a little bit of both of those, and over in general, and just talk about what was involved. All right, so first things first, let's go ahead and let's dive into the character compositions I'm working with. So currently we do have the cyclone build. I'm going to level that, and we are currently at level 87. Now, I did scour all over the place to try to find the best cyclone build out there, and on top of that, unfortunately, I originally wanted to create this character and go Flicker Strike, which is why his name is THJ Flicker Strike, because that's what I thought I wanted to do. That's the build I started getting into, until I quickly realized that Flicker Strike is not for the faint of heart on a budget. Now, we have been doing very well. I've already saved up another 49 divine. We're doing pretty good in chaos wise. We're definitely getting resources. I'm definitely acquiring them pretty quickly, much faster than I normally would in a lot of the other seasons. It's also easier for me to run in-game content because I have that MageBlood. But Flicker Strike was absurd. Just where I was at, I had 3 best in slot items between the weapon, chest, and the helm at the time, and that was over like almost 300 div, if not more, and it was a lot. It was really hard for me to buy it. I had to do a lot of flipping. I had to buy stuff on the marketplace, turn around and flip it for like a div profit, and kind of just keep going back and forth. Like, a lot of rings were bought and sold, I can tell you that right now. And it's just because they're easy to flip, right? But long story short, it got to a point where my Flicker Strike just kind of petered out. Like, there wasn't going to be any more damage until I upgraded both rings and the amulet. Looked into it. It was going to cost me about 600 div to do it. So I was like, you know what? This is not a good idea. I have a MageBlood. Let's think about, okay, what builds can I do and utilize that are going to make perfect utilization of it and do a lot of damage? Now, ultimately, I think the best build for a MageBlood from my playtesting so far would honestly be an RF build. I think once you go melding with an RF build, MageBlood allows you to push the super high resistances without sacrificing any resistance on, or without utilizing any resistance on your rings and on your amulets and your other body pieces, right? So it makes it res capping so much easier. So it's very easy, so to speak, to get to that 90% threshold when you have a MageBlood. Now, there's other things that go into it, right? You have to have other slots to increase that maximum allowance, so on and so forth. You guys understand the basis. But Cyclone is one of those other ones that does a crap ton of damage. So when we actually look at the POB that I'm utilizing, right? So this is a POB that I found online. I wish I remembered who I grabbed it from so I could give them due credit. I do apologize, I don't remember. But their build does 38.5 million. Now they are running a studded belt, which is not a bad belt. It's a very good belt. Unfortunately, I have a MageBlood, so I'm going to use that over this one, and which means my flasks are also going to change because I don't necessarily need these same flasks because I have MageBlood. Everything stays active, so I can use a totally different situation, right? This build itself was not very expensive. It was very easy, but I had to overcome some hurdles because obviously, if we're going to swap this out for a MageBlood, we're gonna lose some damage, and that's okay. But then we also got to remember, okay, if we swap these out, now your first 4 flasks from the left side are going to be active this entire time. This is where things got a little crazy as far as trying to do the mix and match game, because it's not that easy. It seems like it'd be very easy where you just go, yeah, whatever, John, just grab your flask, alt roll some stuff, get what you want, go to the Beastcraft, add the mod, right? Yes and no, to a degree. The problem is trying to do the back and forth because you create a very unique problem. Because we have a MageBlood, if I have a flask, for example, that I do 40% additional elemental, like you can see here, on a chaos flask with 70% increased effect, gains no charges during effect. This is, just coming over here and kindling it. It's very simple to do any of these on any of your flasks. Make sure you're kindling them all. But it just makes it super simple, right? This flask alone, if we go ahead and we look at it, so defense 62%, and then notice I'm 75 on everything else. But if I go ahead and I take off that flask and we drop it, there we go, we're negative and all those tank, right? So how about, you saw how over they were. So literally just by having this in here with the increased effect and everything, we pretty much res cap off of one flask, right? And that's the type of thought process you got to have, because now you're like, oh crap, okay. And actually, you know what? This is the that was the wrong one. This one is the yeah, this was the elemental one. But yeah, it's that kind of thought process that makes a difference when you're trying to figure out what to do next. Because you also have stuff like Quicksilver, right? You want to make sure that's always fast because it's going to be always active. So you want to make sure you have that. But do you want to sacrifice that? Or should you be using, say, a fire res or something else flask in general? So that way you also get that mediation. There's a lot of decisions that go into it that make it a little hard and nerve-wracking. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not complaining. I am very happy that I have a MageBlood. And these are 100% first world problems. However, everyone out there is like, oh, I want a MageBlood. I want a Headhunter. What are you going to do with it? That's the ultimate question, and that's what I was posed with, and this is kind of my solution. So what I came up with is I think I will always want to run 3 flasks with the MageBlood. I think having a Sulfur flask is a no-brainer. Really, I should roll this charge up to 70% increased effect. I probably will once I get some more orbs. Obviously 25% increased effect below it, and if you can get that 14%, which is the max roll, beautiful. That's what you definitely want to do. Utilize it. Not to mention it resells very easily if you don't like it. But yeah, you can put this. I would actually recommend just putting it on a Quicksilver flask. Keep all of your speed in one flask, you know what I mean? In my case, I already had one that was immunity poison. I rolled this myself, so it was like, okay, whatever, easy enough, because I don't care about the tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 for the increased effect. As long as it says 25% increased, we're good because you have MageBlood. We don't care about reduced duration or any of that. It doesn't affect us, right? Because these flasks always stay active. So a Sulfur is kind of a no-brainer, right? Creates consecrated ground on use. So you're just gonna have the entire time you're moving around. 60% increased effect with 40% increased damage. It's just a massive damage multiplier. A massive damage multiplier. So you may just want to use it. So this was definitely a staple. Quicksilver is just once again super nice. All my tunes now with a MageBlood, they run super fast. It's really nice, convenient. It was already kind of quick before, but now it's super fast. And then the Chaos Res. And because Chaos Res is usually the bane of everyone's existence, it just makes sense to make sure you have a Chaos Flask on hand at all times. So that way, that takes up 3. So what this means is you essentially have 1 flask to slot in that is utility, an actual utility of some proportion. Now, Cyclone, I need Crit Strike. And actually, I got to figure out how to fix it because I don't have 100% Crit Strike. Right now, if we look at my Crit Strike, I'm only at 52.12%. I'm missing something in my build that is allowing me to shoot up there to that top tier and get all 100%, like the POB says. But you know what? It's okay, we're still doing a crap ton of damage as it is. But this flask is definitely a must. Having this critical strike flask is a must. When I take that off there, I drop to 32%. So it makes up a massive chunk. So this one is already taken on the Cyclone build. On my explosive arrow build, it's a different story, totally different story, and we'll pull up the POB to look at that one. But overall, in general, just minor tweaks to the build have made this feel very nice. And I'm noticing that not only is a MageBlood very useful because one of the flasks, but also it just frees up so much of that headache, right? You're not necessarily worrying so much about what resistances do I have on rings, what resistances do I have on amulets. Notice that when we look at these items here, I mean, I got lightning resistance here, I've got nothing there, right? And these are rings and amulets. Helm, no res there. Boots, we got a little bit of fire res, right? A little bit of fire. Gloves, we have a little bit of chaos. But overall, in general, we don't have any res, and they all comes directly from the flask. And that's the main benefit, because then it just allows you to have so much more flexibility here with these others. So it's not even about what the MageBlood does, it's what it allows you to get away from. Now, it definitely is circumstantial for each build. So, and that will segue into the next part, which is we're gonna talk about explosive arrow build. So currently, if we look at my explosive arrow build, I have 38.8 milli damage, basically. Maximum fusings, configuration tab set up appropriately. Overall, in general, it's nice. Now, this is with my MageBlood, and that's with these flasks active. And you can see that I actually run the fire res on this one, because I want 20% less damage taken from the fire res. I want to take and utilize that because I do have a piece of gear that converts damage to fire. So what that means is essentially, because I convert on some of my items, gear items, I take damage as fire damage. This allows me to mitigate some of it, right? It's 20% less damage taken from fire damage. So not only do I get the 50% increase here, and unfortunately the well above overcap, which is kind of unfortunate, you know, we're plus 69%. Nice, plus 69%. Is my head in the way? Yeah, it is. So if you look right by my glasses, we're at 69% additional right here. And that's because of this flask. But I want this damage mitigation, and that's why I'm taking it. Could I eventually just take this out? Absolutely, it would be totally fine. But because I do want to play smart about this and really take advantage of the MageBlood, I had to think about what made the most sense. So we still have the same thing with the Cheetah Flask. We have the Amethyst for Chaos res here. We even have the Quicksilver here. Now this one, Explosive Arrow, was a lot easier to get my resistances on because of just the general nature of the build. So with utilizing everything else that we have, and the nice thing is I originally was going to take this and also do lightning res flask, but I didn't necessarily need it at the end, so I didn't. But these jewels make a big difference in this build and help things out a lot because I'm getting a lot of speed and life from them. But yeah, overall in general, it was really nice to be able to just go through, grab everything I needed, and not worry so much about the res, because once again I have a MageBlood, so it makes things a lot nicer. And it also means that I can add a little bit more survivability because I have the flask to play with it, right? I can utilize those in different ways and leverage them in different ways to make a difference. And because if I pair that with, say, a Dragonflight's Onyx, right? So what this does is essentially it gives us +3 to explosive arrow and elemental resistance, and reduce the amount of needed efficacy of your skill gems. So for example, like my Malevolence, for example, typically when people run this build, you're going to run some Skitterbots, Malevolence, Grace, Determination. So you got armor, evasion. Malevolence is damage. It's pretty much pure damage, right? As it says right here, it's you and nearby allies deal 20% more damage over time. You and nearby allies have 20% increased skill effect duration. Okay, so Malevolence is great for just straight up damage. However, having all 4 of these in one lineup, these are here in themselves are standard 33% mana reservation. So it says 50% mana, right? So 50, but depending on what the item that you socket them in, if it has the efficacy, then it drops down, right? You can usually get it to an average about 33, and that leaves you a little bit of wiggle room. What this means is typically you can run 2 in Skitterbots here, and then you have to decide when to turn on and off Determination and Malevolence. Because I have a MageBlood, that allowed me to beef up some of my attributes on my rings and my amulets, and actually go to the tree and get my reduced cost here. So do the efficacy here. So now on this particular build, I have all 4 active at the same time, which allowed me to grab a lot more damage. This once again only came about because I had the MageBlood. Now, getting gear was harder than you would think. So it's flipping around some of these builds. Tree wise, it pretty much is the exact same. There's a few nodes that I've changed very minimally. Zizaran does an amazing job at making his build guides. I'm following one of his builds as well as the other person that helped collaborate with him on this. I know his build guide said it topped out around 15 mil, but he's hardcore. His life is much greater than mine. My life, because I am softcore and I'm okay with dying, is 4,200. His is well above 5K. A lot more tanky, beefy boy. I'm a little bit less, but a lot more damage, right? Like I'm doing a lot more boom boom. So it's just one of those things where we're gonna have differences between the two because of differences of like softcore, hardcore, right? That's just one of those situations that will always be a thing that you have to kind of worry about and kind of manage. Right now, we're doing absolutely great. We're having a ball with this MageBlood, but we're definitely struggling with trying to figure out what's best in the slot. What should we be putting in these rings? What should we be doing in the rings? Is this Onyx Amulet the best in slot? It looks like there could be a couple of different modifiers that will help. I'm noticing I'm spending a lot more in path of building because of the stupid MageBlood than I am in the game. And I'm not necessarily complaining about that because I love to just get into the math. I'm an engineer, so I love math. So doing the math, figuring everything out, it's nice for me. I enjoy that aspect of things. But at the same time, it is very frustrating when you want to try to do slight changes and modifications to a build, and an item like this really hinders it. So what I'm having to do is I'm actually having to share this item between accounts, and that's totally fine. There's not a problem with sharing this at all. It's pretty simple. I just come over here, I take off the flask that I need, take that one off, we take this one off, we log into the other character, and we run it, right? Not a big deal, pretty easily. Unfortunately, we do have to have the MageBlood active on the other account to then have all the gear, because as soon as I take it off, we have min-maxed the explosive arrow to a point where I can't wear gear without it. And that's another hindrance, where if something ever happened with this, or let's say I get drunk one night and decide to slam it, well, then my other build's SOL if it breaks. So, but overall, in general, having a MageBlood has been fun. It's been interesting. I've hit heights and challenges this league that I normally wouldn't do. I'm gonna go ahead and go do the serious fight and get all the fights done for all the bosses that I can. Overall, in general, I'm able to run tier 16 maps like they're nothing. These are super simple for me to run now. Even most of the special modifiers, easy to do. We did a Conqueror map. It was super simple. Overall, in general, having a lot of fun with it. It's great. And even the Cyclone build is coming online very quick. And I got to attribute a little bit to the MageBlood. And there's the trial and tribulations I figured out with utilizing this type of a item, because it is not necessarily the easiest one to build around. I definitely would recommend that anyone who says, hey, I want to go get a MageBlood, or I want to get a Headhunter and I want to use it, I'd highly recommend that you go ahead and research a little bit ahead of time to see what changes you can make and what you really should be doing on those builds to really fully utilize them, right? Because the last thing you want to do is say, yeah, I want to get this item, then you get it, and then what, right? Like, you want to know what to do with it, so that way you kind of know the direction you're going to take and how you're going to play the game. Because the longer you sit on it and the more you mull it over, the more it just becomes kind of a hindrance more than it is a blessing, right? But yeah, that's gonna do it for this video. I just wanted to kind of talk in general about what it's like getting a MageBlood, some of the hurdles, trials, tribulations I dealt with, and also just in general about what it's been like since then. So far, it's been great. I've been having a great season. Leave comments down below. Are you enjoying the season? Are you having fun this league? I'd love to hear more from everyone. And yeah, that's gonna do it for this video. Have a good rest of your day. Peace.